disciples of the internet, how are y'all doing today? I'm Charlotte or Nora, whichever you prefer, and I'll be your hostess for today's event. So, I don't think it's far-fetched to say that I love gaming, judging by how much I've used it as B-roll footage throughout my commentary career. It's been a staple of my life for all of the 18 years I've lived it so far. Even if it's gotten a little, let's just say wonky as of late. You know, I've got the Wii. I touch the 360 every so often, the PS4 doubles as my air fryer, the fat PS3 just chills there, and then there's my main setup. A Series S mounted under my desk, a PC that hogs a fifth of the desk space because Sarah had me get a big ass budget case, and a PS3 Super Slim and a Nintendo Switch fighting for the same HDMI cable. This is what paradise looks like to most people, but despite all of that, there's always the dreaded point in every gamer's life. You gotta touch grass. Not that I hate touching grass, I actually would prefer going out more often, but that also means I can't stare at Squirrel Girl's tail for a while. So how about we stare at it in the McDonald's? Handheld gaming, at first starting as a way to keep the boomers occupied with things like Pokemon and Tetris, is now becoming more and more of a mainstream commodity, and there's several reasons for this. Number one is because of the mobile gaming industry and how that whole market shifted the gaming landscape. People have gone from throwing virtual paper into trash cans and launching poultry at Gmod buildings, to now playing full-blown Call of Duty Warzone on the same devices they use to call people slurs on Twitter, which is honestly astounding, but that's a subject for a whole other time if I get the motivation to do it. And the second reason is just because, well, handhelds are getting better and better. You got the Switch, you got the legally questionable emulation handhelds, and you have portable stovetops that can also play The Last of Us for an hour and a half. And that's why I own 4 of them. So today, instead of discussing dumb internet drama or talking about cringe theater kid merch, I'm going to be talking about the 4 handhelds that I have lying around my room. And to piss off my target demographic, I'm also going to be ranking them from least favorite to most favorite. Why am I doing this? Well, because why the fuck not? And already we are starting off with a bang. We all remember the 3DS, right? It was the thing that made Sony stop supporting the coolest thing they ever made and give up on handhelds entirely. Get that shit out of my face. That doesn't count. Get that away. Thank you. So this 3DS XL was a hand-me-down for my stepdad. And more recently, I modded the ever-living fuck out of it, allowing me to do whatever I wanted with it. I could play COD Zombies, play Pokemon, commit a felony. The sky's the limit with this thing. So why don't I like using it as much as I do everything else? Well, I think it's simply because 1, I haven't really found a great use case for it, considering all the other shit that I have, and 2, I didn't really grow up with the 3DS, so I don't really have any memories of it to try and latch onto, and I'm not really familiar with a lot of the 3DS's library other than, like, what, Mario? That one version of Sonic Generations, I think there was like Animal Crossing on it. I'm trying my best here, guys, give me a fucking break. Don't get me wrong, it is a baller console for what it is, I just haven't really found a great reason or a great way to use it yet. Who knows though, maybe one day I'll bring it on the train, or I'll bring it with me to work and test it out. I might actually like using it. Okay, so now on to the handhelds that I use on a regular basis. Why is the Switch, of all things, above the 3DS? Well, for starters, I've had my Switch since 2018, and it's been my main handheld of choice for a little over 6 years now. It's actually how I experienced a lot of games for the first time, namely Sonic Mania, Bayonetta 2 and 3, even fucking Apex of all things. I know I'm just as ashamed as you are. Also, even though the handheld is aging exponentially with every passing year, and despite the fact that I own another handheld that, in most if not all cases, can outclass the Switch, games still aren't that bad on it. Except for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, nothing can save those games. But games like Borderlands, Metroid Dread, Smash Ultimate, Breath of the Wild, Dune 2016, even Witcher 3 looks pretty good on it. I think if anything, the only problems that I have with the Switch are the ergonomics and these things. Okay, let's get the less controversial one out of the way. The Joy-Cons are tiny as hell. Like, in my hand, they look like capsule machine toys. And holding the system in handheld mode is close to the most uncomfortable thing I've ever had to deal with besides wet food in the sink. There is a solution to that though, and it's this. It's the Zen Grip by Satisfy. Not sponsored, I swear. Basically, you put the Switch in it, and it makes it a lot better to hold in your hands. It's so much better to the point where unless my Switch is docked or in its travel case, it's almost always in the Zen Grip. I'd rather have an over-engineered piece of plastic surrounding my Switch instead of having to pull my hands away to make sure I don't get fucking carpal tunnel at the age of 18. And now on to, these. The Joy-Con sticks are bad. Like, really, really bad. Like, class action lawsuit bad. It's almost to the point where they make the Xbox Duke look like a fucking masterpiece. Now, design-wise, I think they're alright. They're kinda like the PlayStation sticks, but mixed with a little bit of the Xbox One controller in terms of how they look. And for a lot of games on the Switch, they work pretty well. In fact, the only time where they don't work well is with first-person shooters, because the sticks aren't all that precise and they don't have that much range. It's a bunch of nerd shit that most of you probably won't understand. And unless you want to use the shitty motion controls that they put into the game, you're kinda stuck either using the default sticks or just using a Pro Controller. But that's a fucking walk in the park compared to the actual discomfort I feel when getting Joy-Con drift. While other controllers tend to drift from time to time, they aren't as bad as the Joy-Cons. They will drift on a regular basis to where you either buy a new pair, do the tried and true Q-tip with alcohol trick that only works for a while, or have the knowledge to replace the sticks despite knowing that they'll eventually drift again. That's why not too long after getting my first job, I opted to buy Hall effect sticks for my Joy-Cons. It's hella scary because there's the potential of breaking something. In fact, I actually had to buy a new left Joy-Con simply because I broke a ribbon cable trying to replace the stick in that one, but it was worth it just so I could not have to deal with the drifting bullshit anymore. But other than those issues, I still love my Switch and it's still my backup handheld for when I go out. Having something I can just pull out and get some quick gaming done on the train or when I don't feel like using anything else is actually comforting. It's a great handheld for when I want to play something like Princess Peach Showtime or play some Borderlands 2 or cry as I watch Batman Arkham Knight stutter like a motherfucker on that thing. Jesus Christ, why did they do this to us?
What the dog doing?
So, the PlayStation Vita. What can I say about this console that hasn't been said already? Sony kinda left this thing to die after a couple of years and decided to stop doing handhelds entirely, which is a complete shame because this was basically the PSP but better in a lot of ways and actually would have competed with the 3DS if they didn't completely fumble the bag. But nope, Sony basically just left this thing to the indie devs to save and then discontinued it in 2019 and then decided to make an absolute abomination to all handhelds. Okay, enough lamenting about Sony's fuck-ups, let's actually talk about this thing. So, this is my Vita. Technically my second one because my first one from 2015 has a charging port that tells me to go fuck myself whenever I try to plug in a cable. And now I have this one, a first-gen Vita imported from Japan. And honestly, this one is a lot more comfortable than the other one, but that's mainly because this one feels like it's built with love and care, and the other one looks like it'll bend like an iPhone if you look at it funny. The sticks are also far better because they're actually Hall effect sticks instead of whatever the Slim model uses, and there's also the OLED screen that's better than the Slims. But why do I rank this thing higher than the Switch? Well, for starters, the games. I started playing Little Big Planet because it's really good and makes great use of all the handhelds gimmicks like the touchpad and the gyro, and once I get custom servers to finally work, I'll be able to play all of the custom levels as well. I also tried out Killzone Mercenary, you know, really good FPS, and this also may look familiar because this is just footage that I used in my last video about Hasbin merch. Arkham Origins Blackgate was also one of my favorite games on the system, even though there's an upgraded version on console and PC. It's still a great game, you know, kinda gives off Arkham Asylum vibes because of the layout and a little bit of the atmosphere. And there's also Lego Ninjago, specifically Shadow of Ronin, because I fucking love the Lego games, except for Skywalker Saga, that one can go fuck itself. Shadow of Ronin is partially based off of my personal favorite season of the show, which is season 4, and does a great job of bridging the gap between seasons 4 and 5 while also just being fun as hell. And as for another really good exclusive, Uncharted Golden Abyss is kind of like Uncharted 1, but at a really low resolution with different lore. Still fun as hell and gets the Nora Gold Star of approval. However, another thing that makes the Vita enjoyable is the ports of PS3 games. Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, PlayStation All-Stars, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, UMVC3, the Metal Gear Solid collection, I could go on. Probably my favorite, though, goes to Dead or Alive 5 Plus. Now, I enjoyed DOA 5 Last Round on PS4 for a variety of reasons I won't go into here, and I also liked getting my ass kicked by my friend on the regular, followed by us slinging swords at each other. So, when I started playing DOA 5 Plus, even though it didn't have all the extra content from Last Round, it's still a really fun way to play DOA 5. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that I enjoy playing it here more than I do on my Steam Deck, because at least I can just open the game and have it work instead of having to do a bunch of Linux fuckery, but that's for later. But probably the biggest reason why I love the Vita is the homebrew scene. Not only is it hella easy to mod this thing, but there's tons of cool shit you can do. You can have an actual battery percentage. Why didn't Sony have this by default? You can also get dedicated adapters to use microSD cards on the system to upgrade your storage, which is part of the reason why the Vita didn't do too great, because the memory cards cost an arm and a leg, so having the ability to toss 256 gigs of storage onto this thing is a godsend. Oh, and there's also another really cool plugin that's helped me out a ton recently. Y'all might be wondering how I'm getting the footage from this console. Well, it's not from a capture card. It's actually from a plugin that allows me to plug it in via USB and record it on OBS. Comes in handy for when I need B-roll footage for a video, but I don't feel like playing Cyberpunk or Black Ops 3 for the millionth time. And of course, there's the endless amount of homebrew ports. I played a lot of San Andreas on the Vita during my junior year, which kept me occupied while I dealt with probably the most traumatizing moment of my life. And there's also a port of Quake 3 as well, which is cool. Not like I'll ever really play Quake 3, but it's nice to have the option. There's also a version of Soul Calibur, which is just ported from the Android version, which is what a lot of the more recent homebrew ports consist of, because they use the same architecture. To translate into normal terms, Vita games, old Android games, work good. One game that works really well is Dead Space Mobile. It was basically a mobile version of Dead Space with its own story, and honestly I think it's a lot more terrifying than the original, but that's just because the necromorphs are low poly. Someone even ported fucking Balatro to this thing too. Every day we just come closer to world peace. One of the cooler ports though is Ultimate Spider-Man. No, not this one, and no, not this one either, even though it's really good. I'm talking about the old one from the mid to late 2010s. Yeah, they got a mobile game based off of it, and it's pretty damn cool. Suffers from a lot of early mobile game jank though, like the controls. Dear God, the controls. However, all of this is just scratching the surface of what you can do with a modded Vita. That's a topic for its own video though. Anyways, onto the last handheld, and the one we all probably expected. Yeah, we already knew this was coming. Valve's handheld air fryer has been serving me well for almost a year now, being a worthy addition to my backpack. Hell, I even got a dedicated sling bag for the deck when I go to work, or I go out with friends, or I'm going somewhere that doesn't need me to take a fuck ton of stuff with me in my backpack or laptop bag. Despite already having a proper gaming build that again takes up a large amount of fucking desk space, I was still eyeing the Steam Deck ever since it came out in 2022. So cue me on a random day in 2024 sitting in the cafeteria during my senior year and hitting the order button. 1 week and $412 later, I got my deck right as I came home from school to then get ready for work. So before I get into all the shit I did to my deck to make it reach the top spot, let's go into what's already there. And honestly, the best way to describe it is a great way to either play older games with peak performance, play more modern titles at the same quality as a PS4 or maybe even a Series S, or to just clear through your backlog. And it's also really good at just being a PC, whether it comes to browsing the internet, installing stuff through the App Store, or installing your 50th SU Storm skin. And speaking of it being a PC, let's address the elephant in the room, SteamOS. SteamOS is probably one of the best operating systems I have ever used next to the PS Vitas. It's built off of Linux, which, you know, great for Valve for trying to make that a more mainstream OS for gaming. And honestly, in gaming mode, it kind of gives off Switch vibes by default. Also, it's gotten me to stop having a skill issue with Linux, and I think I want to convert all my stuff to Linux now. Only problem is that to get stuff to work, you have to do a lot of Linux fuckery with it. It also plays a lot of stuff nicely, even to where something like RE8 runs at a stable 60 or even a stable 40 FPS if you want a little more battery life. Cyberpunk also runs pretty good. In fact, it's actually been my preferred way to play modded Cyberpunk recently. I also like running some of Valve stuff on it because, of course, I had to. Portal and Half-Life 2 have been bangers on this thing, and Portal 2 has been great, but I still need to beat it. And I also even got around to trying out Brutal Half-Life on this thing because, you know, version 3 came out and I'm like, fuck it. Bit of a clusterfuck to get set up, but then again, so is the original. And The Last of Us Part 1, well, it certainly runs like The Last of Us Part 1. I also like playing fighting games on the deck because your girl is a massive fighting game nerd, though it's mostly been Street Fighter 6 because it's the only one I have installed on the deck at the moment. I do have DOA 5 Last Round installed via the rate packs, but again, I'd rather play it on the Vita because all the fuckery to make it work kinda soured the whole vibe for me. And also, Spider-Man. Just Spider-Man. Masterpiece. But would you believe me if I told you the deck could get even better? On the software side, you can install a few things to get some more out of it if the stock experience isn't good enough for you. And the main backbone of this is a thing called Decky Loader, which allows you to set up a bunch of plugins to use within SteamOS. There's one to change the look of the home menu, one to change your boot video, one that allows you to change the art of all your games, which really comes in handy for non-Steam games, or hell, even just your main library if you so choose. And even one that gives you a proper compatibility badge from ProtonDB, because let's be real here, the deck verification system kinda sucks ass at times. Just look at Spider-Man 2. There's also EmuDeck, which is meant to make emulating games a lot easier on the Steam Deck. It installs all the emulators for you and configures them. It sets up the folders. It even lets you set up all your ROMs to be launched from SteamOS directly, which is really neat. It's been a wonderful way to let me experience the only Pokemon game I might ever play, aka Pokemon Ruby, because nothing else in the series matters. And I'm conveniently recording this after the announcement of Pokemon Legends ZA. I'm going to get fucking roasted for that. And of course, there's Cryo Utilities, which for the people who aren't total nerds, makes some games not run like total shit, and also does a bunch of other stuff that I don't really know enough to really talk about, so go watch CryoBite's whole video on it, he might actually explain it better. And as for everything on the outside, in terms of hardware, having a really good battery bank helps me a ton when it comes to the Steam Deck. I use one from Ugreen, again not sponsored, and also a good case helps. I got one for Christmas, been really great, also has a kickstand, and I even have a anti-glare screen protector on it because, fuck light glare, it hurts me whenever I'm trying to play games. Sun, go away. Oh yeah, and there's also the storage. If you got a lower capacity Steam Deck, like I did, you'll know the storage gets eaten up pretty quickly, so what I did, got an SD card. And if you know how to use a screwdriver and not fuck things up, get an SSD. And if you really know how to not fuck things up, go play Marvel Rivals. No, I will not elaborate, I have great taste in games, fuck you, Lou. So yeah, that was me autistically rambling about handhelds for, how long has it been? What, like 20 minutes or something? I honestly had a lot of fun making this because, I got to not talk about brain rot inducing drama for once, and I actually got to talk about something that I really liked, which is, well, handhelds. I would like to make more fun styled videos like this in the future, so if that is your sort of thing, let me know. And also tell me what exactly you would like to see from me regarding this sort of fun style that I provided in this video. I don't know, I'm kind of just making shit up as I go along for this part here, forgive me. But if you enjoyed me being autistic about gaming, go ahead, like, subscribe, the usual YouTube shit. Also check out the link to all of my socials in the description, linked in the card down below, and also join the Discord server. Depending on when I upload this, I'm going to be doing a stream on Saturday, and I'm also going to be doing a movie night on Sunday where we're going to watch Scott Pilgrim, so if that seems like your sort of thing, go ahead and join. But with that, this has been Charlotte, or Nora, whichever you prefer, going to go back to playing Lego Ninjago, and signing off. Have a lovely night.